When we left him, Benjamin Siegel had just stepped off a train in Los Angeles. He was 31 years old. He had spent his entire adult life inside organized crime's most violent inner circles. A contract killer, a bootlegger, a man trusted with the kind of work that ends careers and ends lives in the same motion. He had been sent west, not as a reward, but as an exile. What he found there changed him. Not who he was underneath, that never really changed. But it changed what he wanted to become, and it changed who was willing to help him become it. This is the story of how a Brooklyn enforcer learned to want to be somebody else entirely. There was already someone in Hollywood waiting for him, in a sense. His name was George Raft. He and Siegel had grown up together on the same streets of New York. Two boys from similar circumstances who had gone in superficially different directions. Raft had moved to Hollywood in 1929 and built a genuinely successful film career playing, of all things, gangsters. Smooth, dangerous, perfectly dressed men on the wrong side of the law. A screen persona that Hollywood audiences found endlessly compelling, and that Raft, having grown up around the real thing, could perform with unusual authenticity. When Siegel arrived in California, Raft became his bridge into a world that no amount of money or violence could otherwise unlock. Through Raft, Siegel met actors, directors, producers. He was invited to parties he would never have been invited to, on the strength of his own reputation alone. He met Clark Gable. He met Cary Grant. He began throwing his own lavish parties at his Beverly Hills mansion. And the same Hollywood figures who would have crossed the street to avoid a known contract killer in New York found themselves in Los Angeles, sipping champagne in his living room. This is one of the strange mechanics of fame and glamour that this episode is going to return to again and again. Proximity to violence can be repellent in one context and irresistible in another, depending entirely on how it is dressed. Siegel, for the first time in his life, had access to people who were famous for being looked at. He wanted, more than almost anything else, to become one of them. He tried, more than once, to actually become an actor. There are accounts, not extensively documented in any single primary source, but repeated consistently enough across biographical work to be treated as credible, that Siegel had test scenes filmed of himself playing a gangster character. Not as a joke, not as a vanity project to be laughed about privately. He wanted a real film career, the kind his old friend Raft had actually built. No studio ever cast him. The reasoning, as one writer later put it with a dry, almost wincing precision, who, exactly, was going to stand on a soundstage and shout "cut" at Bugsy Siegel? Who was going to tell him his performance needed another take, or that the lighting wasn't right, or that he needed to hit his mark 3 inches to the left? The fear that had made him powerful in every other context made him unusable in this one. He could buy his way into the room. He could not buy his way out of being who he actually was once he was standing in the spotlight. This is, in miniature, the entire problem that would eventually follow him to Las Vegas, and eventually get him killed there. He could purchase access to glamour. He could not purchase the thing glamour is actually built on, which is the audience's willing suspension of fear. His personal life in this period was, by any account, chaotic. He remained married to Esta, who had moved with their daughters to the comfortable Beverly Hills home he provided. At the same time, he carried on relationships with multiple other women, including the actress Wendy Berry, with whom he was involved through the early 1940s, and Countess Dorothy DeFrasso, an Italian-American socialite whose connections opened yet more doors in both Hollywood and international high society. None of this appears to have been conducted with any particular discretion. Siegel moved through these relationships the way he moved through most of his life, directly, without much apparent concern for consequence, trusting that his money and his charm, and, when those failed, his reputation for violence, would smooth over whatever friction resulted. He used his expanding social network for business as well as pleasure. Hollywood studios, eager to maintain good relations with a man who clearly had connections to people far more dangerous than himself, found it expedient to grant him small favors, investment opportunities, quiet partnerships. He was not simply attending Hollywood's parties. He was, with increasing confidence, beginning to extract value from them. The glamour was real, so was the rest of it. While Siegel was being photographed at parties and courted by studios hoping to stay on his good side, he was simultaneously expanding the syndicate's California operations into prostitution, narcotics trafficking, and bookmaking, alongside the wire service that was already making him extraordinarily wealthy. In 1939, an old friend from his New York years, a mobster named Harry Greenberg, became an FBI informant. This was, in the world Siegel operated in, the single most dangerous thing a person could become. Siegel and an associate named Whitey Krakauer killed him. Siegel stood trial for Greenberg's murder in September of 1941. Before the case could fully proceed, Krakauer, the one other person who could testify directly to what had happened, was himself killed, removing the most significant witness against Siegel. The exact disposition of Siegel's own case is not fully documented in the surviving record. What is documented, clearly and repeatedly, is this: a childhood friend turned informant and a childhood friend turned executioner who happened to be the same Benjamin Siegel who was, at almost exactly the same time, dining with Clark Gable. Now we need to go back, briefly, to introduce someone else. Because the rest of this series cannot be told without her, and because her story, on its own terms, is at least as remarkable as his. She was born Oni Virginia Hill on August 26, 1916, in the small town of Lipscomb, Alabama. Her family was poor. Her father traded horses. She was one of several children in a household that offered her, by virtually every account of her early life, very little beyond the bare necessities and the expectation that she would marry young and stay close to home. She left as a teenager. Some accounts describe a brief marriage at 15, quickly annulled, with some kind of settlement attached to it. The details are murky, as much of her early life remains, because nobody was carefully documenting the movements of a poor teenage girl from rural Alabama in the 1930s. What is clear is that by her early 20s, she had reinvented herself completely, and had done it in a city built on exactly that kind of reinvention: Chicago. In Chicago, Virginia Hill became something the underworld of the era had a specific name for: a courier. She moved cash for the Chicago outfit, sometimes enormous sums, carried across state lines with no paper trail, no bank record, no official transaction of any kind. She became close with major figures in Chicago's organized crime structure, including the outfit's accountant, a man named Joe Epstein, along with operators like Johnny Roselli and Joe Adonis. She earned a nickname of her own during these years: Queen of the Mob. It is worth pausing on what that nickname actually represented. Hill was not glamorous in the way the term might suggest to someone unfamiliar with how organized crime actually used women in this period. She was trusted. She was useful. She moved through a world of extraordinarily violent men and made herself indispensable to them by being competent, discreet, and willing. By most accounts, she first encountered Benjamin Siegel in New York in 1937, introduced by Joe Adonis. Hill herself, testifying years later before the United States Senate's Kefauver Committee investigating organized crime, would place the meeting differently, sometime around 1942 or 1943. Even the people who lived this story could not always agree on when it began. Whatever the exact date, the relationship that mattered began in earnest in 1939 at George Raft's Hollywood home, where Hill and Siegel reconnected and quickly became inseparable. She was, by every surviving account, volatile in a way that matched Siegel's own temperament almost precisely. The two of them did not so much balance each other as amplify each other. There is one incident from this period that biographers return to repeatedly because it tells you something specific about both of them. In a jealous confrontation, Hill struck the actress Wendy Berry, one of Siegel's other ongoing relationships, hard enough to nearly dislocate her jaw. This was not a relationship built on quiet domestic stability. It was built on money, violence, glamour, and a shared willingness to act first and absorb the consequences later, which happens to be the exact description Meyer Lansky once gave of Siegel himself 20 years earlier on a Brooklyn street corner. Siegel had finally found someone who matched him. It would not, in the end, save either of them from what was coming. By 1945, Hill had relocated with Siegel to a small desert town in southern Nevada. Here is where the legend usually begins. The legend says Siegel arrived in this town, looked out across the empty desert highway, and saw, in a moment of singular visionary genius, the entire future of American entertainment. Lights, casinos, a city built from nothing but his own imagination. We need to stop and correct that immediately, because it is the central myth this entire series exists to dismantle. Las Vegas was not empty. It already had operating casinos and hotels when Siegel arrived. A modest, dusty, but functioning gambling town, established under Nevada's 1931 legalization of casino gambling, more than a decade earlier. It was not glamorous. It was not yet a national entertainment capital, but it existed, and people were already running businesses there, years before Benjamin Siegel ever set foot in it. He did not see an empty desert. He saw a business that other people had already started, that he could take. His first venture in Nevada was almost a footnote. He purchased a small property called the El Cortez Hotel for $600,000, then sold it not long after for a $166,000 profit. It should have been a warning sign rather than a triumph. A quick flip for a modest gain is not the same skill as building and sustaining a large, complex resort property, and the difference between those two skills would very nearly destroy him within the year. But it gave him confidence, and it brought him into contact with the project that would actually define the rest of his life and end it. There was a hotel already under construction on the edge of town. It had stalled. The man who started it had run out of money. His name was Billy Wilkerson. He was not a gangster. He was a Hollywood nightclub owner and the publisher of a powerful entertainment trade newspaper, The Hollywood Reporter. A man with genuine vision about what Las Vegas could become, and absolutely no ability to control his own gambling habit long enough to actually finish building it. Wilkerson's idea was genuinely ahead of its time. He envisioned a resort unlike anything Las Vegas had seen, a sophisticated Hollywood glamour destination rather than a rough gambling outpost. He blended Spanish colonial architecture with emerging Art Deco influences, aiming to create something that felt, even in the middle of the Nevada desert, like a piece of European sophistication transplanted into the American Southwest. He gave the project a name, the Flamingo. Some accounts trace this to Virginia Hill, who was known among her circle by the same nickname on account of her long legs. Other accounts simply credit the flamboyant pink bird itself as a symbol of glamour and exoticism. Either way, the name predates Siegel's full involvement in the project. Wilkerson broke ground. He began construction. And then, he did what compulsive gamblers in a town built specifically to separate compulsive gamblers from their money tend to do. He lost enormous sums at the gaming tables of the very industry he was trying to build a monument to. By the time Siegel and his mob backers took serious notice of the stalled project in 1945 and 1946, Wilkerson was out of money, out of time, and increasingly out of options. What happened next is the part of the story Las Vegas prefers not to tell in quite this much detail. Siegel and his syndicate partners did not approach Wilkerson with an offer to help finish a struggling friend's project out of generosity. They bought their way into a controlling position. The exact mechanics of the takeover, how much was paid, what leverage was applied, how much choice Wilkerson genuinely had in the arrangement, are not fully documented in any single source available today. What is documented is the outcome. By the time the Flamingo was completed, Billy Wilkerson's name had been effectively erased from its origin story, and Benjamin Siegel's had been written in as its sole creator. This is worth sitting with directly, because it is the precise moment the myth and the record diverge. The myth: Siegel saw the future and built it from nothing. The record: a Hollywood publisher had the original vision, started the construction, ran out of money because of his own gambling addiction, and was bought out, pushed out, more precisely, by a mob enforcer and his financial backers, who then took full credit for a vision that was never originally theirs. Once Siegel had control, he did not simply finish what Wilkerson started. He took it over completely: design decisions, construction oversight, the entire direction of the project, with the same impulsive, act-first temperament Meyer Lansky had identified in him as a boy of 12. He began making changes, expensive ones. He wanted marble where there was already perfectly functional tile. He wanted custom fixtures shipped at extraordinary cost when standard ones would have done. He wanted, more than anything else, for the finished hotel to be unmistakably his, a monument not to Wilkerson's original vision, but to Benjamin Siegel's idea of what glamour was supposed to look like. Every one of these decisions cost money, the syndicate's money, money that had been pooled from mob investors across the entire country, who had been promised a profitable, well-managed resort, not a vanity project for a Brooklyn enforcer trying to prove, once and for all, that he belonged among the glamorous people he had spent a decade trying to impress. The bill for that proof was about to come due. We are going to leave him here for now, standing in the middle of a half-finished hotel in the desert, having just convinced himself, and nearly everyone watching him, that this had been his idea all along. It had not been his idea. He had taken someone else's stalled vision, paid to remove the man who actually had it, and was now spending money that did not belong to him to make the result look like a singular act of genius. This would have been a survivable lie if the hotel had simply opened on time, on budget, and made money the way every other Las Vegas casino around it was already managing to do. It did not open on time. It was nowhere close to on budget, and the amount of money it eventually cost would turn out to be the single most important fact in the story of why Benjamin Siegel did not live to see his 42nd birthday. There is a strange symmetry worth noticing before we close this episode. In Hollywood, Siegel discovered that he could buy proximity to glamour, but never the thing glamour was actually built on: the audience's willingness to forget what he really was, even for the length of a single take. In Las Vegas, he was about to discover the same lesson at a much larger and much more expensive scale. He could buy a stalled hotel. He could buy out the man who started it. He could buy marble fixtures and custom architecture and a reputation, eventually, as the visionary founder of an entire city's gambling industry. What he could not buy, what no amount of syndicate money was ever going to purchase for him, was the one thing the entire scheme actually depended on. The hotel had to work. In part 3, we are going to show you exactly what happened when it didn't. A construction budget that exploded from $1 million to $6. A grand opening that collapsed, almost comically, under its own unfinished ambition. And a rumor, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore, that the money disappearing into the Flamingo's budget wasn't simply being spent, it was being taken.